A pair of new Nintendo 3DS television ads are going to start airing in about a week in North America, so I'm going to give my impressions on them, both the good and the bad. And good, first off the bat, is that it shows adults of many different ethnic and gender backgrounds playing Nintendo 3DS. I made a huge rant recently about gender diversity and ethnic diversity and marketing portable systems, and so I'm glad Nintendo is doing pretty well with that lately. They've been pretty good with that in general, but especially lately. Then there's the fact that they're showing adults playing the system, and I know Nintendo handhelds have generally been sort of stereotyped as sort of a kids-only sort of systems, and that's just because they first became popular with younger kids, and the library has generally been skewed more family friendly, kid friendly on Nintendo portables. But this isn't a new thing. Nintendo's marketed the Game Boy to adults back in the late 80s and early 90s when most gamers were children. Now most gamers are adults and they grew up with Nintendo portables and with Game Boy and DS. And even with the emergence of smartphone gaming, most of those big breakout games that are really popular with adults on smartphones, most of those are perfectly family friendly games that aren't like E-rated stuff. Is generally the biggest, tends to be make bigger splashes with adults who play on mobile gaming. So it's really not that far fetched to pitch the system to adults. I mean, even with the Game Boy Advance, more than a third, it's around 2004, more than a third of those players were over the age of 18, and that's only gotten that 18 and up user base has only gotten larger with the DS and with the 3DS. And there's some overlap with mobile gaming, but in terms of, it's not like if you're serious about games, you're going to be in the market for a dedicated device. If you just want a phone and you're just going to play games on it because you have a phone, then that's a different market. There's overlap, but it's not the same market. So it's good that they're advertising in that sense. The second really awesome thing about these commercials is that Mario and Resident Evil are being marketed side by side. Nintendo's sort of they've talked about that since E3. About those different styles and moods and audiences and sensibilities are equally important to Nintendo's overall business. But it's nice to see Nintendo uh, sort of marketing those games as side by side and sort of showing the range that Nintendo 3DS has to offer. And 3D the DS, it had its grittier games as well, but the 3DS having better graphics is more adept to those sort of games, and the 3DS can deliver the sort of graphics that players who like more realistic games would be more welcome to accepting and not really having to compromise so much as was the case with Grand Theft Auto 3, for instance, where the gameplay was awesome, but they went with a cartoonier style to better suit the 3DS. The better suit the DS's capabilities, and a lot of players of Grand Theft Auto 4 on the HD home systems were really turned off by that. So then the next thing I think is they did good was emphasizing the online multiplayer aspect of the 3DS, because there's still this image, even amongst gamers who are really knowledgeable about these things, that online gaming means some 18 to 30-year-old dude with a headset on playing a first-person shooter on Xbox Live, and not really thinking that online multiplayer gaming could be much beyond that. And this is sort of saying that yes, there is online gaming on the 3DS, and and with Mario Kart 7, we're now having more robust features, supporting communities and all that good stuff that's really gamers have come to expect on the home systems for years now. But now it's really coming to the portable space in a really meaningful way with Mario Kart 7 and with the emergence of the Nintendo Network, so it's good that they're pushing that. Now, for the things I didn't like so much about these commercials, the bad, one thing I thought was odd was that they showed the pink 3DS, the blue Nintendo 3DS, and the red Nintendo 3DS. Where's the black one? I mean, Nintendo seems really they've really placed they've really sort of placed black on the back burner in their marketing for 3DS. Whereas it's sort of funny because the 3DS is decidedly the design is very untoy-like, unlike the Game Boy Advance and to a lesser extent the original Model DS, which were very kind of more toy-like. The 3DS it's a much less toy-like, more of a device and less like a toy. But the colors, like the red and the blue, they're not. I'm not saying they're bad. They're not my first choice. But compared to the black, they're very sort of toy-like. And when you're going for when you're skewing 18 plus, you'd think they'd probably make the. I mean, I know like just having different colors boosts sales dramatically of a system. You know, it seems a very arbitrary thing, but it's an important thing to consider. Uh, but you'd think they'd sort of make the option, the fact that there's an option to have it in a black, more staid, less toy-like color. You'd think they'd sort of promote that more as an option, make that. And if I was promoting, I'd probably make the black model the standard, like the default sort of version in the advertising and everything. Even though it's good to show their multiple colors, but to see, when you see older guys, with a red 3DS and a bright blue 3DS, and you see the girls with the pink 3DSs. I'm not saying those colors are bad, but I don't know. I'm just surprised they've really haven't placed the black one at the forefront, because you'd think that would be sort of the way to go, is sort of the default one, sort of like how they made the white Nintendo DS Lite the default DS Lite, sort of with that sort of Apple-like, sort of mimicking the iPods at the time with that enamel white color. The over-the-top acting in those commercials, I think, could be improved on, because it's hard to express people playing games. It's sort of watching someone play video games without embellishing it in some way. It's sort of like watching someone else read, or they could be reading something great, but to watch them read isn't exciting. So when you want to focus on people using the product, you're sort of going to have them overact to a certain extent. But they got so animated about it that it was kind of over. It was over the top. It was kind of cheesy. It wasn't too bad, but it was getting into cheesy territory. Because I mean, you see these adults, going all crazy playing the 3DS. I mean, adults don't play. I mean, kids don't even. I rarely see kids getting that over the top excited over video games. Let alone, I mean, I go to meetups where like you'll walk into a restaurant, or just walking through Times Square, you'll see like people adults everywhere playing the 3DS, and where you go into the underground in Rockefeller Plaza, you see adults everywhere playing the 3DS. You don't see them like yeah, like going all crazy like that. And these are like the real adult 3DS owners. So it's to see. It seemed going crazy like that. Like when I see people playing the 3DS, when I see kids playing DS and 3DS in public, they are not going crazy like that, let alone adults. So I think maybe they went a little overboard in that respect. And they, in that vein, overuse of very game-specific esoteric lingo that'll be familiar to people who own the games and are really into it, and thus wouldn't need to be advertised at anyway. But, like, oh yeah, I got the Tanuki tail, and, it's like when you go a little over the top like that, it makes the game seem very, like something, like a very esoteric obsession that you'd have to be really into, and not something that's, like, for everyone that's easily approachable. And then the line where, at the end of the one where the Mario and Resident Evil one, at the end where he says, like, oh, I love you, to the girl at the end, that really didn't make much sense to me. That was kind of random and cheesy, and and they failed to mention the eShop. Now, Nintendo's been very aggressive lately marketing the eShop in banner ads and in ads for videos. They've even showed up on some of my own YouTube videos. They've been very aggressive with that, but they need to mention it at the end, and 3DS has sort of this reputation of just being only these $40 retail games, and the games are so expensive, and meanwhile we have this robust eShop with all these games like Mutant Mudds and V's, or however you're supposed to say that, and Pushmo, and Mighty Switch Force, and Freaky Forms. and more and more. And they just say, they show like some games, like the some of the best games, Zelda 3D and Mario 3D Land and Mario Kart 7 and Resident Evil Revelations and all these and tons and lots more great games on the Nintendo downloadable content on the Nintendo eShop. They need to just throw that in there. It'll just show that the game is more than just $40 cartridge games. That there are lots of budget, great budget games unique to the Nintendo 3DS. They're exclusively through the eShop as well. They need to, I think, push that a bit more in their advertising. They had one commercial specifically for downloadable stuff, which they mentioned Freaky Forms. I think they ought to do another commercial pushing that aspect of the 3DS. But it's good to see Nintendo be really aggressive with pushing the 3DS, and these commercials are good. They can improve, but I'm glad to see them. Also, a bit of trivia. My mother, I believe, was in a Game & Watch television spot back in the 80s. I'm not entirely sure about that. She doesn't remember much about it, but yeah, she was in some sort of commercial for some sort of Nintendo. Probably the Game & Watch back in the 80s. So that's that, and thank you very much for watching.
And now a word from our non-sponsors.
If you're an author seeking publication, one of the first things you probably did was do a Google search for publishing, at which point you're immediately bombarded by an avalanche of all sorts of information and products and services promising you different tips and ways you can get published, and send your money to this guy or listen to this guy's advice, and you don't know if this is old information or if it's from someone who doesn't know what they're talking about, or if it's someone who's trying to pull your leg, and you're getting all these sort of conflicting tips about what to do and what not to do when approaching publishers. And that's where the JPW Online School of Publishing can make your life a lot easier. Using online interactive webinars and one-to-one personal coaching, the JPW Online School of Publishing gives writers direct access to real professional publishing experience and expertise. I've attended one of James Wagner's seminars on publishing in person, and the advice I got, it really helped me. I'm probably maybe a year or more ahead of where I'd be in the game in terms of getting my my manuscript to market than I would have been if I hadn't attended this seminar. The JPW Online School of Publishing also offers a free email newsletter with lots of tips and advice, in addition to a $20 ebook, the 4 Fundamentals of Publishing. That book is actually, you could download the ebook version of this completely free of charge, but just by signing up to the email newsletter. And I know that the information that I've received from the JPW Online School of Publishing is really just, it's been invaluable in my in furthering my writing career. So if you're a writer seeking publication, you don't know where to begin, just remember jpwschoolofpublishing.com. The password for the ebook on the fundamentals of publishing is waiting for you to download it. $20 value, totally free, and keep on writing. Thank you very much for watching.